So when I had the near-death experience, and I came back from the other side, and I couldn't go back to the job that I used to have. I just couldn't work again at a 9-to-5 job. And my husband had lost his job as well because he had been at home taking care of me for months on end. So there we both were with no job. We lived in a beautiful apartment which we couldn't pay for anymore, so we had to move out of the apartment. I'd been sick for the last couple of years. We'd had huge medical expenses, and all our money had been going to helping care for my well-being right up to my last days. I mean, literally, we had hired a nurse to come to our house because I could no longer go to hospital, and so on. So now here I was healed. We had no jobs, very little money, and had to leave our apartment. So one thing I want to say is that we moved out of our home, but I noticed one thing, and that was there's a lot of shame with being associated, that is associated with being poor or with being broke. So in addition to struggling with money, there's a lot of shame associated with. And I found it hard to go back to the community that I used to be in, because I didn't want to go back to working a 9-to-5 that I hated. I couldn't do that. My life had more meaning than that. And my husband, we'd both been through this together. We both couldn't go back to that life. At the same time, we could no longer fit into our old community, because our old community were a community that were pretty affluent, and we were no longer there anymore. We had to admit we were struggling financially. We were living month to month, and we went and lived in a little humble cottage out in the country where nobody knew us, which was great because it offered me a level of freedom. And in that freedom, I was able to find myself. But here's where it gets more interesting, is that I found that as I got to know myself, and I got to know what I loved doing and didn't like doing, and what what made my heart sing and what my passions were, I was still finding the money wasn't coming. That was still a real struggle for me. And I started to feel fear. And this is another thing that gets in the way of making money. It's the shame of not having money. It's the fear of not having money. I mean, it's a really heavy subject. It's the fear of it. And also there's a lot of judgment. Many of us can have judgment towards people who do have money. So I would say remove the judgment to people who do have money, because life is not a zero-sum game. People who do have money doesn't take away from those who don't. So anyway, one day, there was a man I met at an event, and he was very interested in my near-death experience. He was very interested to know the story. And I told him the whole story, and I told him how my dad on the other side told me, go back and live your life fearlessly. And so he said to me, well, have you? And I said, I think so. And he goes, so you've been living your life completely fearlessly since then? And I said, well, there's this one little fear I've had. And he said, what's that? And I said, it's the fear of not being able to make money, because I can't go back to being that person I used to be. I can't go back to my old job, but I have this little fear that the money's not coming, and we can't go on like this forever, and I don't want to be, on the streets and homeless and living in a cardboard box, and I feel I didn't come back to just live like that and die and go back again. I felt there was a bigger purpose, and it scares me that I have no money. And this man, he said to me, he said, your dad said to you, go back and live your life fearlessly, and you insult that gift by fearing not having money? And I thought, wow, well, money's a pretty big thing. And he said, you saw your physical body heal against all odds. It wasn't supposed to heal. You came back from the coma against all odds. Your dad never proved you wrong. The universe never proved you wrong. It never proved you wrong when you trusted it. Why can't you trust it this time? And when he said that, it was like, wow. And he said, if I was your dad, I would say, how dare you? How dare you waste the gift by becoming fearful again? How dare you waste that gift? And I thought, wow, okay. And it hit me. It was like a lightning bolt. So I went home that night and I was telling Danny what happened, and I said, I've decided to be fearless about my situation. I'm just going to not worry about the money and go do what I have to do as if the money is there. And it was from there, what happened was that a friend of mine invited me to come and share my story and to speak it, and I realized that's what I'm supposed to do. And that was when Wayne Dyer discovered my story on the internet and my book got published, and one thing led to another. But the first thing that happened was I had to lose the fear. I had to lose the fear so that I could charge my batteries and shine my light. And that is when we start operating on a different frequency. And when you're operating on a different frequency, different things happen to you.